My name is Jennifer, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to create a strategic marketing plan. First, a little bit about myself. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Creative MMS, and I've been in marketing for about 15 years. So obviously, I've seen the evolution of a lot of different platforms, a lot of different digital marketing mediums, and things of that nature. So I can definitely say that I've experienced a lot, and I've had to adapt a lot, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just made me realize that having a plan is really important, but it's also a plan that needs to be adaptive and needs to be able to be changed as time goes by. So as we continue, you'll see a little bit more about how this works and how you can go about creating your own marketing plan. On a personal note, I do love going glamping with my husband and our 3 Labradors. What are we going to be talking about? So our agenda for today is, why is a strategic marketing plan important? Where do we start creating a marketing strategic plan? What's included in the plan, which there's really 4 basic elements, and who can help you build the plan? And more importantly, and our last piece is, when should we actually create a plan? So starting with, why is a strategic plan important? You may say to yourself, well, we can try this and see what happens. Well, we'll get to that later on in the presentation, but really you need to have a plan, and you probably plan for everything. You plan for a wedding, you plan for going on a vacation, you plan for probably even what you're having for dinner. But it's also really important to make sure that the reason why you plan is that you hope to get to the goals that you're striving for. So a strategic marketing plan helps you plan, organize, execute, and track your marketing strategy over a given period of time. It also keeps the entire team working towards common goals. It needs to revolve around how the team is planning to hit those goals. So you need to be sure that marketing is aligned with sales, is aligned with management, and everybody's striving towards those same goals. And in essence, it also provides an overview of all things needed to create that plan. So if one person came to you and said, what's your plan? You have a definitive presentation to give them that not only has what the plan is, but it gives the substantial evidence as to why you've made it your plan. That goes into, well, where do we get started and how do we start? We start by looking at the overview of your company. What's the purpose of your company? What's your mission and your vision? What are your goals, both your short-term and your long-term? Company alignment, is everybody in the same boat? Does everybody believe that these are their goals? And keeping in mind that your goals must be SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Sure, we've all heard that many times before. You want to think too, what makes you so unique? What makes your company stand out in a crowd? And why should a person use your product or service versus somebody else's? Now you might be saying, well, I'm the CEO of the company, or I've been working at this company for umpteen years, so I should pretty much already know what my company is. You'd be amazed at what happens when you try to put this together, especially with your goals, because you may find out that different departments have different goals. And if you're not all aligned on what those are, and you're thinking, well, we want to get X amount dollars in revenue, and management wants to get this much, and financial needs this much, and sales is hoping to achieve, 50 new clients, whatever it might be, you need to make sure that they're all aligned. In addition, something that quite often gets missed with companies is a mission and a vision, and your unique selling proposition. So keep all those things in mind when you're building out your overview. Second thing to include in your strategic marketing plan is an overview of the competition. If you're going into battle and you're a general, you obviously want to know something about your enemies. Where do they go? What do they offer? What do they do? How do they compete? What's their unique selling proposition? You need to get a general overview of who your competition is. Now, your competition in search engines may be different than your competition as far as you see it. So you also need to decide who your actual competitors are, and you need to agree on those as well. I would limit it to probably 4, maximum of 5 competitors. You don't want to get into the nitty-gritty. So look at those that most comparably offer what you offer. What services do they offer? How is their offering unique and different from yours? How do they compete with what you're offering? Who's got the upper edge on what? And what target markets are they trying to reach? And more importantly, where are they trying to reach them? You may even want to conduct what I call to be mini SWOTs on your competition to capitalize on maybe what they're lacking. And going back to your overview, you'll probably even want to do a SWOT analysis of your own strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to make sure that you know where you stand before you even get into this battle. And you know where you can best beat somebody out and where you have some weaknesses that you probably need to work on. After reviewing and analyzing the competition, it's really important that you understand your audience. You need to know who you're trying to reach. If you don't know who you're trying to reach, it's like throwing a bullseye or throwing a dart at a bullseye when you're blindfolded. You think you know where the target is because the target's always been there before, but what if some friend of yours comes over and steals the target and pulls it away? Then you're just shooting a dart at a wall. You've really got to understand who your audience is, and you can do that by asking just some of these questions below. What are their primary goals and their challenges? What do they want to know? What triggers them to look for a product or a solution? What's that one thing or three things that gets them searching and thinking, I've got to find something to help me with this? Where do they go to get that information? And what influences their decision? And keeping in mind, an influencer could be their boss. It could be the content that they read. It could be their spouse. It could be their children. So there's internal influences, but there's also external influences. Maybe it's reviews on a website or online reviews or social reviews. Maybe it's who they spoke to at your company. Maybe they had a conversation with a salesperson directly at your company or a customer service representative or a support help. So all these things help influence their decision. So you need to make sure you gather all that information. And where they go for their information could be numerous things. Think of it, it could be the internet, it could be your website. Again, it could be reviews, it could be your social media, it could be friends and relatives. It could be their neighbor, depending upon what your product or service is, whether it's B2B or B2C. They could go multiple places to find that information. So think of all these questions, and I'm sure more will come as you begin to build them out. Like your competitors, you probably don't want to have too many audiences. I would limit it to maybe 3, tops 4. The reason being is that you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You want to see where you can get the most value out of your audience. So you might have 5 or 6 or 7 different audiences or personas, as we call them, that you're trying to reach. But just because you have 15 or 20 of them, you don't want to try to reach all of them. I guarantee you there's like your top 3 to 4 that if you had to narrow them down, these would be the people that you want to connect with first. Then you could work on the smaller audiences, or they would just wind up jumping on that bandwagon of some of your larger audiences. Last piece of what we're doing within the marketing strategic plan is the channels. You want to take an omni-channel approach. So you want to look at the right message, the right place, at the right time. Make a list of all the channels you know. These are kind of like the steps I do when I'm going through and creating like what channels do I want to possibly promote in. So I want to make a list of every channel I know within the marketing industry. I can tell you the list is really, really, really long, and it's probably going to be a little exhaustive, but it's really important to make sure that you jot them all down. Then you're going to look at that long, long list and you're going to filter out those where your prospects and your customers are most likely going for information. Again, it's just like taking those 15 to 20 maybe audiences that you offer and narrowing it down to 3 or 4. You're going to do the same thing with a list. You're going to create a list in this case and put them all down, and then you're going to narrow it down to maybe the top 4 or 5 where your prospects are going more often. Maybe it's your website, maybe it's social media, maybe it's to a review channel, maybe it's to videos, who knows where they are. That's what you're going to find out. When you do all that, you can also get another list of maybe like the top 3 or 4 additional ones that become like secondary channels. So you have things to fall back on. These are what we call like your top 3 to 4 are your must-haves, and then your additional ones are your should-haves and your nice-to-haves, depending upon budget, depending upon the amount of time you have, depending upon your staffing. There's a lot of different things that will go into what you can actually do when it comes to promoting your products on specific channels. Conduct a content audit of what you have internally. Already see what you have on your website. Understand what information you have, and is the information that you have really geared at those audiences? If so, start to narrow down which audiences it's geared at, and even where they are within their stage of what we call the buyer's journey. awareness, consideration, or decision. Are they aware? Are they considering? Or are they deciding to make a purchase? Get that content audit, understand where you are, and if you need more information, hold a content working session to brainstorm on content that you might be lacking. That's just kind of like, this is what we have, this is what we need to build on. So that's what you're working on within this content working session. And then from the content working session, you can go ahead and start to build out a campaign calendar to tie it all together. So you're going to tie in, here's the stuff we already have and we already own. Let's start using that right now because we can, because it's already existing. Then we're going to say, okay, here's the stuff we think we need to build from our content working session. Let's start building this content, whether it's a web page, whether it's, getting information out on a major article, Forbes magazine or New York Times or wherever you're going. You need to make sure that you're where the audience is. And with that campaign calendar, you can start to build it out and actually create a timeline as to when things are going to get into the public's eye, if they already aren't, and when you're going to be promoting them. Could be via email, or like I said, it could be via social, or a lot of different things. So again, just to kind of overview it, there's 4 different things that you would need within the strategic marketing plan, which is your overview, your competitors, your audience, and your channels. If you have all 4 of those things, I guarantee you'll have what you need. There's other things that you might want to include, like budget, which is always, discussed. Keep that in mind as you're building things. Sure, we'd like to promote our stuff to the rooftops, but if money doesn't allow it, we need to keep that in mind too. Now, where do I dig all this stuff up? Because that's a lot of information that you need to get. I'm going to break it down by those sections. Overview, you should know that already. Like I said, you've probably been in there for a while. If you don't, work with your team to get that information, find out what it is, sit down with your sales team, make sure you're aligned on goals, make sure that what you're writing there is everybody's kind of stacked hands and agreed upon. If you're looking to dig up information on your competition, search for your services on the internet. Just go ahead and start typing them in. Look for those 3 to 4 to 5 competitors that keep coming up when you keep searching for your services. Is it the same ones that always come up? Don't always look at the paid ads too, because sometimes that can be a little misleading. Look at the organic stuff that comes up and you'll start to realize that these are some of my competitors that I need to make sure that I'm focusing on. You can also use tools like SpyFu or other ones that are out there that can help you do the research that you need, and they also would almost hand it to you like, here's the competitors. Might not be an all-inclusive list. You might feel like you have to do something different, or maybe you feel that a competitor that's in there that's really not your competitor. Take it with a grain of salt, but there are some great tools out there with you. Next, to dig up the information on the audience, talk to your sales teams and others in your company. These are people that have already spoken to your current customers. They've spoken to your prospects. They know what customers are successful. Why are they so successful? What makes them so successful? What have they done? How did a prospect find out about you? Where are most of your qualified prospects coming from? Are you getting a lot of engagement on social? There's a lot of opportunities to find out things about your audience and where they go and what their pain points are and what triggers them to take action. Whether it's a customer, whether it's a prospect, whether it's a, really, really, really fresh lead, they've all got some great information and they can really pass that on to you. Last to dig up information would be the channels. Very important as you go through everything, you want to shoot right back to your audience and your competition. Where's your competition promoting their goods? What are they talking about? What's trending? What's happening? What's their big engagement opportunities? Subscribe to their emails even and find out what they're talking about on their emails if they have one, or their blog newsletters. Look at your audience more importantly, and again, what are their trigger points? What questions do they have? Where do they want to get this information from? And where are they, spending most of their time? What are their biggest pain points? So there's a lot of places where you can go to look up this information and to find it out. And I think it really helps you when you sit down and think about it. The internet is a huge source of information, as we all know. So use it. Okay, so here's my famous cartoon. Plan A. Your strategic marketing plan is your plan A. Yes, it's supposed to be for a specific timeline. Yes, that would all be great. You don't necessarily need a plan B to start with, but it's great to have it. Right now, we're in quarantine, have been probably for about the past 12 weeks. 13 weeks ago, 14 weeks ago, none of us would ever imagine that we would be sitting at home, if you are still sitting at home, and in quarantine and sitting in your house and spending time doing work remote. We had phenomenal plans for a lot of our clients going into this year in January and February. I can tell you in March and April, a lot of those changed. We had to shift gears, some very major gears, some very minor gears. Some needed to leave certain, marketing platforms. Other ones needed to stay on them, but needed to increase it. So it really just depended upon who the client was, who their customer was, what their customer was involved in right now, what their spending habits were. It's going to be obviously a lot different right now for maybe somebody that's in the hospitality region versus somebody that's in the pharmaceutical region. Those are two different industries, and they have very different reactions to what's going on right now with coronavirus. So keep that in mind. You want to have a plan A. You try to stick with plan A. You want to test it out. You want to see what's working. You want to see what's not working. If something happens in the industry or with your customers or with your competitors, you might need to shift. Maybe a new competitor comes into the scheme. If you are doing plan A and you thought you should be using these top 3 to 4 things to get your message out there, but one of them really isn't working, switch it around. Few months, things aren't happening, take it away, try something else, or maybe just pull back on it and add something and see how that works. So that's why we do that all-inclusive list as well, because there might be some things in there that you thought, maybe this will work, but let's try this first. We'll go to the maybes, and that can be your plan B. I want to thank you for your time today. Again, my name is Jennifer. I do hope you find this presentation helpful. And if you want to reach out to me directly, I'd be more than happy to help you with anything that I can. My email, my LinkedIn address is down at the bottom, or you can visit our website directly at creativemms.com. Thank you.